Hello and welcome back to the She Who Dares Wins podcast. And my guest today is Emma Tester. I don't have a problem with your name. I have problems with names, but yours is fine.
Mine's is simple.
Very good. Emma, can you tell me about when you've dared and won?
So I think, like we said just a second ago, my whole career probably is always a bit of a gamble. My industry is quite niche, quite difficult to break into. And so every time there's been a chance, I've just gone for it, and it's kind of panned out all right so far.
You wouldn't give yourself enough credit.
No.
You have like an amazing career.
Yeah.
Let's set the scene though. So you are a nutritionist.
Yeah, I'm head of nutrition at Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh yeah, there you go. Drop the mic. Because that's good. That's good. But your career, so we knew each other how many years
10 years,
ago?
wasn't we?
10
Yeah.
years. Oh my God, time goes so quick. And you just finished your PhD at Beckett.
Not finished.
Oh, you're not
because
finished?
I was like part way through, and a job at Munster Rugby came up, west coast of Ireland, and within 3 weeks I'd sold my house. Within 6 weeks I was living in Ireland, and I'd gone to be lead nutritionist there. And then I was just like finishing my write-up with my PhD.
Okay, so you didn't even finish and you landed a job at one of the biggest rugby clubs in Ireland. That's not by chance. How did that happen?
Job came up, went for it. I went for it. I'd been working in rugby for quite a few years, not in a full-time capacity, pretty much full-time. A lot of my applied work was rugby-based, but I was like part teaching at the university, doing my PhD, and working a lot alongside that. But I'd started my PhD myself, so like I just started self-funding because I knew I wanted to do it. So
I never knew that. So you actually didn't have...
No, I didn't have funding for it at the start. So I probably was self-funding for at least 6 months, 9 months maybe. And then sort of teaching PhD applied role came up at the university. So I picked up one of those positions. So it was like, we were probably the first generation of that type of contract that was coming out. They're quite popular since then, and they seem to have dwindled off a bit, but they were kind of a first group. So there was a whole cluster of us who were flung into an office together, loads of different disciplines. And that's kind of where I met Leah as well. Still friends with her all these years later.
All these years. So. And then that job that came up though, like, I imagine the field's quite big of people wanting to get into the world of professional sport and nutrition. Would I be right? Or is it quite niche?
The number of people wanting to get in is quite
huge.
Big.
Yeah.
Because nutritionist is not a protected title. So it's not dietitian, which is clinical based, and you go through clinical training. Dietitians have nothing to do with sport in the UK. They can specialise and get into sports nutrition, the same route, but theirs is a protected title. So any nutritionist job that comes up, you could have done a paper round and applied for a nutritionist job. You obviously wouldn't get through because there's a lot of criteria that you would have to meet. But the field is niche. The pool can be quite big, but actually when you narrow it down and go through it, like, because I interview lots of people now, by the time you've narrowed it down and scratch people off the list that don't meet your basic criteria, it's actually quite a niche little area.
So I didn't know that. Do you think that's a misconception that a lot of people think?
And I think that's why you get a lot of issues around nutrition, because anyone on the internet can be a nutritionist. Anyone who likes a bit of home cooking, I'm going to be a nutritionist, and then just promote themselves as that. So it's not a protected.
Whereas your nutrition was, your knowledge of nutrition was linked to your studies in sport.
Yeah, so I'd done a sports science undergrad, a sport nutrition masters. My PhD was in how the immune system responds in relation to changes in training load and nutrition.
Okay.
So it was sort of an immune-based, but nutrition foundation PhD that I started. But yeah, it can be a challenging area to get into, because there are so many people out there with that background, sports science degrees, sport nutrition masters. There's hundreds of students coming out with those qualifications, but a limited number of jobs. So one of the things I feel most passionate about now as my career's progressed is creating opportunities for new people coming through. So when I was, like even with Tottenham, I've been there only 3 years and I wasn't supposed to be there permanently. I was just a maternity cover.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I wasn't supposed to stay beyond 9 months. And then I'd done an all right job. Eventually, I think after 3 months, they hated me and they wanted to get rid of me. And then at 6 months, they were like, will you stay? We've created this role for you. Will you do it? So then it went from...
Why do you think they hated you? Were you like throwing bananas at them?
I'm not I'm not trying to throw. I might have thrown some food at some people, but I'm not probably the typical person in football. I'd say I'm the most sort of extroverted introvert you'll meet.
Okay.
So like it's a very extrovert environment, but I'm not, and I'm not like Miss Bubbles. I'm not that person. Like, I'm just different, I think, to what they had seen in that role before.
Right.
And they couldn't figure me out at the start.
Okay.
I think because it takes me a while as well to, like... I was quite guarded going in. Just because of how people speak about what it's like working there. And I was a bit like...
Yeah, like egos or...
No, just there was a lot of like, oh, well, that happens, it's just football. And I was like, huh? So I was like, right, okay. So I was probably just a bit protective of myself going into that environment and how they spoke of women in the environment. So I was probably quite guarded going in. And then it takes me a while anyway to like... I would say build bonds and warm up to people. I'm not just a dive all in and I'm like best friends with everyone. No.
But I think that's really cool actually because it takes all personality types and I think there'll be a lot of people out there that are, you know, I wouldn't say the word is quiet, but like you say,
they're not the loudest person in the room. I
But
can be if I want to be.
Yeah.
And I can be if I'm fucking you out of it. Like, I will. But... in general, I'm not a mouse.
Yeah. And you don't need to be. Like, there's this subtle confidence. Do you think you kind of knew that going into the industry that would hold good stead for you?
I think I just went in and did what I do in the same way I've always done it and handled myself how I always handle myself.
Yeah.
I wasn't changing to fit the environment or accepting when people would say, oh, it's just football. I'm like, it's football because you're silent. And that's what annoys me about any environment where they say, oh, that's just how it is. And it's like, it's only like that because you don't say anything. Right. So actually you're the problem. Yeah. It's not football because it's not like that everywhere. It's like that here because you've never challenged it. So my silence is my biggest issue when people have a grievance or annoyance. Not that I'm a stand on a soapbox type. Like I'm really not, and I think that's also why eventually they kind of understood why I was there and what I bring to the environment.
When you say like things are unsaid, it's like, I mean, we had Stacey on, and she talks obviously about her experience early on in her career, not so much, and she talked about when she was at, I think it was Leeds, and the manager pulled up and was like, what the fuck's a woman doing on the football field? And she was just stood there with the players. And she said her greatest allies at the time were actually the players. Yeah. Like, no one is, you know, in the dark in terms of what goes on at football clubs. And it's same as construction. I think it's got a long way to go, but it is getting there. Were you, again, I'm guessing the only female? Yeah. Both when you were in the rugby and in football?
When I was at in any rugby environment, I'd never worked with another female that was in like the performance or medical group in the same sort of squad. So not with, I've only worked in first teams, so there wasn't with first team there. There was not any performance or medical other females in at Spurs as well. We've got a physio intern this year for the first time, which is good. There are more within the academy. The thing with Spurs as well, mine's the only department with a 50-50 split.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
Is that due to you?
I'm intentional. Yeah.
Right.
There's certain positions where I feel it is probably not appropriate for a female to be in that position. Because the dressing room is always a sort of...
Yeah.
It can be an issue. And sometimes it's not appropriate for a female to go into an academy dressing room.
Yeah.
I don't go into the dressing rooms in it. And when I started, they'd said to me, "Oh, we don't want a woman in the dressing room." Not the players. Players were like, "We don't give a shit. We just come in if you need to." And I was like, "No offense, I don't want to."
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hang around with you lot in the dressing room. No.
Yeah.
But also, like, I have to be respectful of the fact that I think there's 11 different languages that I had to translate a document into once at Spurs. The cultural variation is massive.
Of course.
I have to be very respectful of other people's backgrounds.
Right.
Like in the UK and Britain, it's quite a lot of the British players just, don't care. They're like, I really don't care, just come in. And I was like, no, because not everyone feels the same. And it's not even that they say they're uncomfortable. They might be so uncomfortable they can't even say that they didn't want a woman in there. We've got loads of religious different backgrounds as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, that's your space. I don't need to be in there. If I really need something sending in or to get something, I'll just ask
someone to take that in. Yeah. And it's a place where it's a little bit sacred in terms of what's said and what goes on. And
yeah, it's their business.
Yeah.
It's their space. It's one of the few spaces in pro sport that they can be in sort of a protected area. There's no filming, no commercial, no partnership stuff that happens in dressing rooms as well, because it's their space. They've got to be comfortable somewhere and free to speak somewhere. I don't want to hear what they're saying half the time. Just like,
I love it. So I remember talking to you previously when you were in the rugby world about kind of you having to take some of the younger players shopping for food and stuff, and they were like, it's such a challenge. I'm guessing at like elite level, is going into that job and you being kind of like, I'm guessing, sussing out the first couple of months and them being so elite.
yeah.
Were you ever like daunted by it, or were you just like, no, I know what I'm doing here? Like,
No, I don't care.
you don't
I think if you care, you're not in the right place, because you're going to get overwhelmed, because these are millionaires.
Right, okay.
And it's an environment where there's billionaires that can wander around the building at times. If you care, you're not going to get very far. If you need a millionaire to have his protein shake after, and you're overwhelmed by how much money he's got or what bling he's wearing, like some of them wear ridiculous clothes and I'm like, is this fashion? I don't know. Like, they smell nice. That's a big difference. They smell divine.
Right, okay.
Compared to rugby. Less protein on the old bowels anyway, but in general, the smell.
Okay, it's next
much better.
level.
Apart from that,
You just see them as human, like you're
They're
there
just-
to do a job. They're just guys.
Yeah, they're just boys. Like, some of them are baby boys. Some of them are adult males, and like they behave differently. You get the same.
Yeah,
It's just boys.
yeah. I think it goes across all fields. It's not. You strip away the money and the kind of like level that they're at. Like most guys are the same.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
think at the
elevated.
time where I'm at now as well, some of them I could have given birth to them. So I'm like their mammy. I am. Like, yeah. There's some 16-year-old kids
Of course, yeah.
training up with first team, which
Yeah.
is the exception. But
Right.
you're going to get like 19-year-old, 20-year-olds, mid-20s. And then there's only one guy, I think, and he's like a month older than me. But apart from that,
Of course, we're like old. Well, I'm even older than
I'm
you.
younger than you, man.
Yeah. you still
I'm
always
clinging
will
under
be.
that, yeah. Hopefully, yeah. But
Yeah.
if you get overwhelmed by that, it's,
So you just keep that mellow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them as well, culturally very different. I had to teach them manners.
Oh, right.
Yeah, not in like they're not being like an arse way about it. They just never really had to bother about that. So like, if I go over and I put like a little electrolyte in front of them and I wander off. And then I was like, "You're welcome." I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Emma."
I can just see behind the doors now. But this is good. I think this is. I think a lot of people would have gone into that world and that job, like you say, of being a little bit fearful of what you're dealing with. But
I don't think for me it was ever fear. Like I say, I was very protective of myself.
Yeah.
And how I conduct myself in that environment. But now it's 3 years in. I've always been self-confident.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would say I'm comfortable. Whereas before, at the start, it's quite uncomfortable because you're not sure, can I say that? Rugby's very different. I was like, I don't know if they can take my shit.
What, in rugby?
In football.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
so I had to go
right.
in and I was like, I don't know what I can say. And like when I went in as well, I had red nails because Munster is red.
Right, okay.
But Arsenal is red.
Oh.
And someone wouldn't talk to me for a while because I had red nails. And I was like, okay, I got to find a house and then I'll find a salon and I can get them changed. But yeah. And they're like, that's football. And I was like, what have I walked into? It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm literally not, I have red nails when it's off season.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's very superstitious. Well, not superstitious, very
It's very just absolutely okay. But I'd rather not have to listen to them all whinging at me. So a lot of the time I have black nails like my heart. So.
What's been like some real good like highlights, some highs that you've had over the years?
I just love it when people come back from injury and you've played a part in that. I love it when young guys get chances. I love it when I'm there for someone's first goal in the Premier League. I love that. And then when someone's been out for a year, in rugby this happened, a guy called Boomer, top person, and his knee went inside out backwards and fell off basically.
Okay.
Did everything. And he was out for a full year. And I was there when he went back in and I was like, yeah, that's not like it. I remember like when I was younger, a lot of it was about like, I like working in performance, so I like winning. But then I remember when first guys were getting their like international England caps and I was like, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like I do like that feeling where I feel like, yeah, I've contributed to part of that. And like it's a superficial work environment. It's professional sports. It's business. It's not like the most soul-fulfilling place you can ever work. But actually I really like seeing other people succeed. And like I say, as I've progressed through my career, I get a lot of satisfaction on creating roles for new people coming through.
Yeah.
So developing people is actually one of my big things.
It's like passing the baton on, do you feel like?
Yeah, I just feel like as a more experienced practitioner, I should be creating opportunities for people who are me 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And like, we've got babies coming through Spurs and they're making their like England age debuts and captains.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are really just teenagers.
They're
a lot of
babies,
them.
and I
Yeah.
forget, like I say, the guy who got his first Premier League goal, that's happened in the time that I've been there, and he was talking about it the other day, and he was like, it was an absolute screamer, and I was just like, I was there for that. I remember that. Like, that was great.
You're part of you're part of their journey as well because I
Yeah.
think nutrition's such a massive part.
They're always eating, so yeah.
Yeah. I needed you back here to get me through my marathon.
I've heard you did it.
I'm telling the world in case the world needs to know I
Tom
did
said
it.
you were mentioning it.
But I saw a clip the other day on TikTok of, oh God, now I'm terrible, footballer.
Don't ask me.
Plays for England. It's going to come to me. Anyway, he says that his nutritionist told him to have, and then apparently it's a bit of a team thing, pancakes before. So Tom made me 4 stacks of pancakes on like my first 4 or 5 runs, and I kept every Sunday having pancakes right up to marathon day. And I swear, pancakes is the only thing that can keep me running.
Yeah.
So there is something in it.
They're a very good option.
Okay, there we go.
We
Pancakes.
have pancakes on match day -1, which is the day before a game.
Okay.
And then sometimes we have them on the match day if someone wants them that morning as well. But it's just a very easy way to get some high carbs in.
A win-win. What? Okay, so if you've got a footballer or a rugby player that is like, when they get to the point that you're at, so in a Premiership, team, are they already eating well, or are you still coming across?
Like I say, some are babies.
Right. So you're not starting from scratch, but you're re-educating.
Some because if they're from different home nations, different nations around the world, their access to nutrition support is really different depending on where they've grown up. A lot of players that will make it in the Premier League, they've been in an elite academy. They've lived away from home for quite a long time, probably. But again, I met a nutritionist who was with Borussia Dortmund. They're in Champions League final this weekend. And he was telling me about German sort of nutrition system and network. And it's not where it should be. And he was agreeing the same. But, yeah, their access to nutritionists. Premier League is probably the way, really.
Right.
And again, that varies from club to club. So I held a conference recently at our place with, I think there was maybe 15 Premier League clubs, nutritionists. I tried to get everyone, just get them in a room, and because it's never been done. So I was like, let's just get everyone together and see if we can talk about some stuff.
Yeah.
So I managed to get the majority of the clubs represented at some level, whether it's from academy, the women's team, first team, men's. And there were differences across like Spurs would probably lead the way in terms of the number of full-time and employed nutrition positions. Again, some clubs have got one who's dealing with first team, a bit of the academy if they can, and maybe if there's a random bit of time they can do a bit with women's, but massively different sort of.
So that's quite a stretch then for a club to just have one.
Yeah. And these are Premier League clubs, so
yeah.
Doesn't mean just because you're in the Premier League you got the best of everything. You've probably got a lot more than some places, but we get players transferring in from other clubs and they've never had nutritionists, so they know it's important. And a lot of them, when they get to a certain level, they have their own sort of team around them. They'll have private physios, private trainers. Not normally nutritionists. A lot of them will have chefs.
I was going to say, you see quite a lot of chefs that come up on social media and they say, I cook for 5 Premiership football players.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? But are you...
Not my dream. I'm like, get out of my house.
I welcome them.
I don't want to go near their house.
I welcome them with open arms. They'll be like, coming in. Are you in charge of that when they go home as such?
We work with chefs at home and provide like plans they need. And then how they operate generally, they'd say they'd text. If they've got a partner, they sometimes find it easier to deal with partners because they're at home more. Mm-hmm. And if there's kids as well, then they can eat as a family as opposed to just eating separately. And they'll give them a selection of options, and the player will just pick what you fancy today, sort of thing. And we'll give them the guidance on the portions and how much to sort of feed them, depending on what the training load looks like through the week. So, or if they don't have chefs, again at Spurs, this really varies depending on working, but we can send them home with all their meals if they need, all their snacks, everything that they could need at home as well. So they can be fully provided for.
Right, okay.
If needs. Some do, if they're younger guys living on their own, then we can provide more for the ones that need it. So.
And how much do you have to monitor it? So you say that, you dropped a protein shake in front of someone, or are you I imagine Emma with her.
I do have a register.
Oh, you do? Have you taken your...
We record who've drank them.
Okay.
And we record how many have had their daily pills for our own practice.
Right.
So not to...
That was a regimen.
If there's a few where you notice a player's not had it consistently, you'll be like, oh, why haven't you had it?
All right.
So it's more so you can have a chat with them about.
Yeah.
So it's more just are they doing what we would like them to do as part of best practice. If not, why not? How can we get them to do it?
Yeah.
But it's for our, because there's 3 of us that work with the first team. It's for our own practice.
Yeah.
If they don't want to have the shake, why? Because they don't like it. Okay, I could give you a different one.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
But so we do monitor in that sense, because everything we're trying to do is best practice. So if a player's not doing it, then okay, it's on us. Why? How can we do it better? It's not really so much to do with, I would never, I have to be careful if I heard it, I would never berate a player for, in a serious way. Like I say, I am their mammy, and I do tell them off. But I'm never having a go at them in a serious way. Sometimes I find it disappointing if they don't do things, because I'm like, you've got everything you could need being given to you. And say in a rehab setting, if a player's injured, I'm like, I've done both my ACLs now.
Right. Good.
This one I did 9 months ago.
How are people doing ACLs? I hear
I'm
this all the time.
hypermobile. Only in my knees, apparently. So I'm like,
Screwed.
Yeah. So I did that, and I do everything I can to get myself just back to be like playing recreational netball.
Right.
And I'm like, why won't you do everything you can to get yourself back to your profession in as best way as possible? But that's where the players are footballers. They're not chefs, they're not nutritionists, they're not anything except a footballer, unless they have other interests. But they are there to do one thing. It's up to us to work with them on how we can encourage them to do the best thing.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that, because they just want to go and kick the ball.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to create an understanding that to be the best at kicking the ball, do everything possible to help yourself get there.
Yeah.
Whereas it's just different mindsets, because...
Yeah, it is. I remember there's quite a few interviews with famous footballers that have said, I think Thierry Henry, when I listened to his podcast, and he said there were plenty of kids that were more able or more talented than him, but he was the hardest worker.
Yeah.
And I suppose it comes from not just on the field, it's nutrition.
Doing
If someone
everything
takes
you
an act, doing absolutely everything.
It's nutrition, it's your recovery, it's your getting in the cryo, getting in the ice bath, getting in whatever works to accelerate your recovery. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it every day. No. It's quite like fundamental basics, but the pathway to getting there,
It's quite hard.
yeah.
So is that one of the challenges with your job then? Do you think is like, we all do it in every job, but imagine with yours probably a little bit more in that you've got to really work with different personalities and figure out how you can get what you need to get out of that footballer.
Nutrition in my head is 20% nutrition, 80% everything else. How do you get them to do it?
Right.
Like the actual science of nutrition is quite slow to evolve. And quite a few people say, oh, it's really fast evolving field. I'm like, nah, it ain't changed in 10 years. Like the fundamental basics of science haven't drastically changed. We still eat carbs, metabolize it in a certain way, and run quite quickly if we do. So that's stayed the same. But we have to work on how do we get people to do what we want them to, or understand the link between what we want them to do and their performance. Behaviour change is a huge research area at the minute, but PhD student I have is going another sort of layer beyond that. And again, it's not a new thing, but understanding the cultural differences as a driver to making behavioural change. We can't just assume that everyone coming in will follow this model of behaviour, because if you don't understand their background, like we've got players that lived in favelas.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite a different upbringing to the guy who's from Tottenham around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, it's Tottenham, but quite a different upbringing from some of the other players.
Yeah.
You've got, like I said, players from... When it's international period now, we've got so many on international duty. There's only about half a dozen players who aren't involved in some kind of national competition at the minute. So,
wow. Of course, yes. So then they're off. Yeah.
it's not like Euros, obviously, for us, Copa America. We've got like international friendlies. We've got qualifiers going on for loads of different competition. Asia Cup, Africa Cup. We've got so much going on still.
Are you still responsible for that player when they go and do?
We provide for them if they need something for when they're away.
Right.
But aside from that, they're looked after by their national squads. But again, that really varies.
I was going to say, like,
Really
yeah,
does. Yeah. So again, we send them with what they need. And some players are really proactive. And I need this when I go away. We're not going to get given anything. I'm like, great. A little backpack.
a little packed lunch.
Yeah. A little pack. And off they go.
Oh, nice.
And you're always dealing with the consequence of what they've done when they've not been under your sort of
when they come
remit.
back.
Yeah. So when we had like the Asia Cup, Africa Cup and Asia, we have like big competitions that players are away for a month, 6 weeks, depending on how far they go. Then they come back. Sometimes, depends on when the competitions are, like they'll come back mid-season. And then we're dealing with someone who's just been on a big international competition, coming back in to try and carry through to the end of the most. So it's a really difficult sort of calendar to navigate through. But again, you've then got it where the players could have a great time while they're away with the national teams, because a lot of the time national squads are just trying to keep them happy. So they'll just feed them whatever they want,
Oh, wow.
within reason.
Yeah.
But they're just feeding them to keep them happy and keep their energy high. And then they come back and they're like, why can't I have that? Why can't I have pancakes? I had that every day when I was away. And I was like, oh, okay, good for you. But that's not what we do here. So,
It's like when a kid goes to camp and it's like comes home and it's like, you don't eat vegetables.
Or they come back and they're like, oh my goodness, it was awful. Like, thank God we've got this food back again. I'm like, okay, you can stay.
I'll let you back in.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're dealing with lots of different cultural things that go on and understanding how you can work with all that stuff, as well as just someone's personality.
Yeah, yeah.
And what they're driven by.
And language, I guess. Like, are they, the majority of players speak English or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Some have excellent English, some have not. That's why I say the way we operate at Spurs, we have like individual menus for everyone, and I'll put that in their own language if their English isn't, if they want it, basically. So if they would rather read in Spanish, I'll put it into Spanish for them. If they want it in Portuguese, I'll put it in Portuguese. So kind of do that to try, and again, it's just one less thing one less barrier.
It literally is like, excuse the pun, but spoon fed.
Yeah, they got a lot of things to
get
about,
to go in
though.
with. Yeah,
So,
I give them that. Yeah,
I think.
But footballers get a bad rep, don't they? They're like, they just talk,
they just
brains
turn
in the
up
feet.
And they're like,
there's
just
a lot
run
more
around
to
for a
it
few
than that.
minutes. They got so much pressure. I think I really sympathise with them at times, because it's not just all the media thing, all the partnerships and everything that's become more and more, but actually you've got people who have been told every day of their life, since they were, most academies start like under 9s, where to be, what time to be there, what to wear, what they've got to do on the pitch. Now you've got to go and do this. They're like, they can be treated like robots. If someone tells me, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, be there at that time, be there at that, I'm like...
yeah, do one.
Yeah, I'm like, oh. But like, to the point of being told what you have to wear every day.
Yeah.
That can be quite a lot. And I think people don't really understand that. And like, don't wear that, wear this. You've got to use that instead of that, because it's got a partnerships thing to do with it. Or like, we have a big zero waste, reusable initiative. We're trying to drive a lot of that. So we're taking away like removing paper cups and things like that and using reusables, and they're like, why can't I have a paper cup? And I'm like, because we don't want you to. And they're like, it's just a paper cup. And I'm like, yeah, but can you just use this? And they're like, I want a paper cup. And then you have to think, it's because they get told everything.
Yeah.
You have to do that, have to do that, have to do that. Now I can't have a paper cup. You're telling me I can't have a paper. So when they lose it over something simple,
yeah,
but it might. I really understand and sympathise, it's because they have limited choice.
Yeah.
They can't pop to do whatever they want.
They'll get
It's not
bombarded.
simple.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said to one very high profile player once, because I'll ask weird stuff. I'm that one.
All right.
I'll ask weird things. I'm like, have you ever filled your car up with petrol? And he's like, yeah. Back in the day, because he never drove. He didn't have a
Right.
driver. Like, have you been petrol station before? It's like, yeah. And I was like, have you been Primark? Just like, yeah, back in the day. I was like, what about Matalan? And he'd never been to a Matalan. And I was like,
Oh,
there you go.
what? Oh my
Just
God, yeah.
if they went anywhere, like they go to a restaurant, they have to sit in a private area, they have to use like secret entrances, they fly to an airport and they have to get like police escorts, because like, especially one of our players, he's so famous in his home country, he's basically like president,
Right.
and he can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Everyone follows it. They follow him around the world. We'll have people like camping outside our
Oh, wow.
training ground and stuff, and like if they get wind of he's here, and suddenly there's 200 people outside the training ground.
Oh my God, that must be awful, really, for him.
He's very aware of how fortunate he is,
Right.
and he's really appreciative
Okay.
of everyone who supports him. But he can't walk down the street.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, and he's never said it, I'm sure he would be frustrated by certain things.
Yeah.
But he knows how lucky he is.
Yeah.
Not lucky, well, bloody odd. He knows how fortunate he is.
Yeah, I suppose that's, yeah, they worked incredibly hard to get there. It's quite interesting, actually. Megan Hine, who is a survival expert, she's taken loads of celebrities, like Kate Winslet, Angelina Jolie, like really high-profile celebrities all over the world doing the Bear Grylls survival thing, you know, when they go off for, like, however many hours.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, you know, what's it like? Because you're in a tent with them overnight. Like, they don't go off to a hotel like the press say they do. And she said, yeah, it's very interesting how some of the footballers she's had, the high-profile footballers, have struggled the most with kind of like the survival stuff. And she said it's not necessarily their ability to survive. It's more the fact that they've always been told how great they are, and that failure is so scary to them. Whereas I'm guessing
It's also rare for them.
well, yeah, because
Like-
once you get through the academies, you're on the route.
Failure at the top level, you can see how emotional they can be about it, how they can be devastated about it. But actually, in football, it's relentless. You fail one thing, you got the next thing 2 days later. So you have to get over failure pretty quick. So
Yeah.
I'd imagine when they're in a different environment, failing at something very different is like, what? Like very foreign to them. Like,
Yeah, because of all that pressure.
yeah.
I mean, so you're changing things, hopefully changing things now in terms of, like you say, paving the way to let others through. I mean, if someone said to me, here's this job, go for, you know, you're walking into a Premiership football player or a rugby, I would be daunted by that. And I've worked in construction. So what would you say a kind of like a good skill set, or what would you say to someone now going into your industry? You can't say don't do it.
No, if I said don't do it, I wouldn't be doing it.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's got to be something good.
Like your key mentoring, but like what would you, if you had to put your arm around someone who's like petrified of going into this industry?
I don't think they would. I don't know whether someone would be petrified going in. They'd probably be very like wide-eyed, doe-eyed about it. Persevere. Like, I say be tough because I feel like I'm mush when I about certain things.
What was the first 3 months for you when you said you thought they hated you?
I cried, and I
Okay.
never cried about work. I never
Okay.
cried all about my PhD, and everyone has an awful time doing that. It didn't bother me. I actually cried because it was so like difficult. I've never been challenged as a female in sport. I've never been, and I've never really experienced anything.
What got you? What was the
It was just the whole like attitude towards we don't want a woman in the dressing room. And I think it wasn't really the woman thing that they had the issue with me.
Mm-hmm. Players or
No, never players.
Oh wow,
No,
this
no,
always
no.
interests me.
Yeah, never
okay,
players. No.
right.
I've never had a player be in football. Never had a player be like difficult.
That is so interesting. It's always
There's definitely cultural differences in how they behave with women towards women. There's definitely that, but I'd never been on like a receiving end of something where I was like, it wasn't that. It was just the environment and me being quite different and people being very wary of other people. I think the biggest thing is that in football, challenge and change can be quite difficult. And I'm someone new. I'm someone who's not the same as what they've had before, coming in and being like, who's your one? I'm like,
it's
me.
Coming in with like someone else's kit on, that could have been great for you.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, God.
Were you employed by your predecessor? I'm guessing was a male.
No, she was on maternity leave. So.
Oh, of course.
But they didn't have my role.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. So the other person was in a lead position, just working with the first team. But in my role, I'm developing across the whole club, so across the academy and the women's.
So you're kind of like, are you like lead nutritionist?
I'm
that
head,
right?
head
Okay.
of nutrition.
Right.
At the club overall. So
A woman in power. Oh, that's gonna hurt.
That's the thing, though. When I came in, I was in the not just the lead. I was in the lead position, just working with the first team only.
Yeah.
And then because of the changes I'd had to make in response to a manager and a different director and just a very high demand group, that I just went, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we do it. Make some changes. Blah, 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 blah. In my head, it was like, that's just what we do. Like, just dealing with coach conversations and dealing with directors and stuff. I was used to those conversations. That's what I'm all right at. Like, but it wasn't until I'd had the opportunity to sit in a few certain rooms with people that they were like, oh, that's why she's here. Okay, I understand. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Would you say it's that classic prove yourself, and it can be really tough in the first couple of weeks?
I think
months?
it was like just getting in. Like I say, I'm very self-confident. I'm very self-assured, and I feel like one of the biggest things for me is composure. And so not flapping and not feeling overwhelmed and not being like, oh, doe-eyed or wide-eyed or blown away by this or, oh my God, this is such an amazing facility. I was like,
it's all right.
Bang. I've got to make a protein shake in a different room this time. Like, but it's okay, get into the room with the right people who are demanding change and respond to that, come up with innovation. So what I've done at Spurs is it's really innovative. I would argue that it's best in class globally across all sports, not just football, not just Premier League. The style of provision we do. And like I deal with a lot of people in different countries and like, no one's doing what you're doing. And I'm like, I know.
And has that come from you?
Yeah.
Wicked.
Again, it was just people wanted change making. So this is what I came up with. And it was just innovation. So in my head, it's just, I just did my job. But the club have been very supportive of what I've wanted to do and like being able to do that and bring in different partnerships and do things in a different way has allowed me to then expand the team, put different positions in. So the club have supported everything I've wanted to do. So although it was challenging, actually as a practitioner at my stage of career, it's really allowed me freedom and to be able to do what I want to do, basically. But people in my office are like, why don't you just do what you want? And I was like, I do. Does what she wants. That's what they want. I'm like, incorrect.
But there's that perfect self-confidence, like you say, in your ability to do your job.
Yeah. And challenging what's not all right. I think is something that I do quite a lot. Like there's things where I'm like, well, that's not right, so let's just say something. Whereas I think before, people's attitude was, well, that's not right, just stay silent.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, no. So I actually think like my office environment, the people I work with, my colleagues, my friends, their attitudes have changed a lot. Not just because of me, but I think maybe I've probably pushed a little bit of showing that it's all right to challenge and you won't be fired overnight. Mm-hmm. You could be, but so far I haven't been. I probably will be. But you can challenge the status quo or challenge something and it not be horrendous, and things might improve a bit. And like, I'm the DEI person in my office for like, there's a few of us at the training centre because there's loads of different sides of the club. I'm a DEI person, and one of the big things I think they now understand what DEI stands for. So
go on.
Diversity.
Oh, and inclusion.
Inclusion. But they're all like, equality. I'm like, no, it's equity now. And they're like, oh, okay. So they've learned some stuff. But having conversations about, and I don't know whether it's just a woman thing. Like, maybe it's a me thing because I will ask the weird things. But just having conversations that are not necessarily exactly what they would have spoke about before. But it's the group I'm with as well. Like,
yeah.
The staff in my office are great.
And I think it shows that you are not the person that's going in banging on drums going, how do we need to get this? No. It's just a sort of change for the better. That, like, it is just this, I'm here to do a job. And that comes with changes. It comes with challenging people and systems that have been in place. And by the sounds of it, it's worked.
This is proving you can do it.
Yeah.
So like, I've known other practitioners in the field and they've been very sort of soapbox type, and it's not got them very far at all. And they're known as that person. Whereas I'm not really a soapbox, but I won't accept what I feel is not right, and I will challenge it. But there's ways of handling yourself in certain environments that I think if you're in a male majority place, you would do it differently if you were in a different environment.
Yeah. I learned quite early on in construction probably a bit more body language and stepping back and reading the person before, whereas in normal situations I wouldn't do that. I'd just be like almost like myself off the bat. But I think I used to love reading books on NLP, and a lot of that comes into play, especially with guys, because I think, I don't think I'm going to say they're not as easy to read as women, but sometimes when you think you know what's going on a face value is not what, and I imagine the same in football, there's a lot going on behind the scenes with personalities and...
Can be, but sometimes I think they're actually really simple to read.
We'll have to cut that out. No. All right, okay, so it's just
like black and white.
All right, okay.
That's what I find sometimes.
Yeah. Which is nice and refreshing.
Yeah, and you can tell if someone isn't being fully open. If they're being open, it seems quite black and white. If they're being quite closed off, then you know something more is going on. So again, it's just like you say, learning your environment. Should I read that person a bit more? But like I say, when I first went in, I was very guarded because I was like, okay, I just got to suss out, like...
Yeah.
And because I'd, like, had a lot of chats and stuff with people that I was working with on who do I need to sort of be aware of or not be aware of, or that sort of thing, and just getting a vibe from your colleagues as well. For me, because I thought I was only going to be there a short time, I wasn't really bothered about the players too much. I wanted to get on really well with the people in my office.
Okay.
And I didn't learn many people's names outside of my office because I was like, I'm not staying.
Okay.
And now I'm like, now I don't know that person's name, and I've been here 3 years. And I'm like, crap.
So if you work with them or in an office, just drop your name.
Oh yeah, bring a name tag. I do have to Google some people sometimes. I'm like, I don't know if I've met them, or like just have a Google. Heck, I wasn't staying, so why would I learn 300 people's names that were? Now I feel like I know a lot of people. I feel like, because nutrition is always quite connected to the
different
club
fields.
As a whole. Like,
right,
I work with stuff with the foundation, with like the women, with the academy, with it, like partnerships, commercial, media, everything like that. And nutrition always gets trotted out for media.
Right. Well. Bring her out on the stage.
Yeah, here she is. What do the players eat? Oh, omelettes. But like, because it get trotted out, you do meet a lot more people that, like, some people in my office, they haven't met anyone really outside of the little bubble. Yeah, but I feel like now I know quite a lot of people, but there's definitely some people that I'm like, I don't know their name, and they're like
3 years down the line.
Yeah, they're not like far distant
Awkward.
from me. I'm like, hey, hey, morning, morning, girl.
Yeah, whoever you are.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 months then. This turned into 3 years.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, you've made amazing changes for the better, and like you say, you really want to push things forward. But where do you want it? I remember chatting to you ages ago. I think you were trying to you were moving from rugby. I don't know. In my head, I know, but I don't know. But you've always been passionate about kind of moving on and going to the next level and the next level. What is that?
I don't feel like that here yet, because I feel like there's still so much scope to do within my practice, within my developing of other people, development of myself, developing other people. I feel like there is more scope, so I don't have like itchy feet yet. But again, I think that's as I like progress on through general life, I'm like, not sure where's next, what I want to do, just go with what I want to do. I feel like I'm at the point in my career where I can be selective of what I do and don't want to do.
Hell yeah.
I'm not, I know I always think, even if I got fired overnight, I'm not going to panic, because there's always a job to do. Like, I'll just do a job.
Yeah.
I always just do what I want to do, sort of thing. That's always been my approach. Even when I was like deciding to go to uni, I was like, I'm good at PE and I like food, so I'll do sports science. I did, and here I am. So
it's quite freeing to be like that,
Yeah.
actually, I think.
No, I think I've always probably been like that. Not very adventurous, I wouldn't say. I'm not like...
I think that goes hand in hand with
I'm not. No. Everyone, especially because I'm in London, I'm living the London life, like London lady, and I'm like, nah, go home, go walk my dog, and go to bed. I'm not adventurous. Like, I'm not like, oh, I'd love to live over there. We've had to go to Australia twice in a year with work, and I don't want to go to Australia. Everything wants to kill you.
It's true.
It's far. It's really far.
It's really far, yeah.
I don't want to go there.
But hold on a minute.
I've had to go twice.
But you're not put in, I'm guessing you're not in an economy sweatbox.
No. And even still,
And
I
you
still don't want to
go.
go. Yeah, I'm like, ugh. So it's not like I'm like, oh my God, I'll go this way and explore the, nah.
You just want to be
We
at
had
home.
to go to Melbourne for 2 days a couple of weeks ago.
2 days?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Don't talk
That's
about
intense.
it. Yeah, and like, I just went to the hotel. I was a bit sick for a couple of days there, and I was just like, oh, I can't be able to go anywhere. Everyone's like, oh, Melbourne, it's such a cool city. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't care. And then the players arrived, and then they cheered me up a bit, which was nice. I did feel a bit better. And then the next morning, one of the sports science lad, Jordan, was like, do you still want to go for a run? And I was like, yeah, yep. I went to run. And he's fitter than some of the players. He's like high rocks, he's done multiple marathons, he's like fit. And so I was like, yes, fine, I'll come down. This is me, unfit and 9 months after a knee surgery.
I was going to say.
So I went and we ran to the beach. I got down to the reception though, and I was like, have you got like a pocket or anything? So I got my phone. I feel like I should take my work phone. Normally I run with nothing. I don't have earphones in it. I don't do it.
That's not wise, but yeah, I'll let you
And I
up.
was like, I don't want to take, I probably should take my phone. Have you got a pocket? And he's like, no, do you want me to carry it for you? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be weighed down by my iPhone. Like an old iPhone is my
I want to
one.
be free.
Yeah, I was like, I've got to take the extra weight. So I like went for a run. It was nice. Ran to the beach and I was like, yeah, it's all right here. And I was like, I'll still go home though. I'm not like desperate to go and travel and do that. I've been to a lot of places.
Yeah, with work and
We're just in
travelling,
general.
yeah.
But it's my best friend. She keeps moving abroad. And so I'm like,
damn
I'll just
it.
go and visit her. And I'm like, no. I've been to Machu Picchu. I've been all over the place. No, wasn't on my bucket list. She just moved there. So I was like, oh, fine. I'll come visit. And there's people that I met on the train going up to Machu Picchu. And they're like, oh, this has been on my bucket list for like 40 years. And I was like, oh, I'm annoyed I'm here.
When am I going home?
Yeah, I was just like, oh, yeah, it's great. So I'm not adventurous.
I love
So
that.
I don't like have any desire to like, oh, I'd love to like move abroad and work in Spain for a year or something like that.
But your passion is definitely change, right? Like you were
I
keen
think
on.
that's maybe the same with it. Like I've done up my whole flat since I've been down there. Like I like to be doing things. I feel like it's not that I'm like desperate to go and seek and do anything. I like potter around in my garden.
Yeah.
And, like ripped out my kitchen and replaced that. And like, so I do like doing things and change. And
Tom said that you just literally were like, I want a new kitchen, ripped it out, and put your own kitchen in.
yeah, I did it
I mean,
as well
that's
because they were going to try and charge me
That's
like
pretty badass.
$4,000. And the kitchen cost $8,000. So I was like, I'm not paying half. So no, I'll do it myself. So I like plumbed it, wired it, did all, I built a kitchen.
I'd say that's pretty adventurous in a spirit
In a different way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not like exotic, adventurous. Like,
Yeah.
I have no desire for chasing this, that, and the other.
That's cool though.
I just like to work where I feel like I can do what I want to do within my practice that I'm happy with. And I'd quite like to live near the seaside, but only because Ian likes the beach.
So Ian, for everyone listening, is Emma's dog. Probably need to touch on that because I was like, I think Tom told me when you got him, you were like, she named the dog Ian. And I was like, Ian? And he was like, yeah, Ian. I was like, okay.
It still makes me laugh. I've had him 11 years. Like,
He's a little, well, he was when I saw him, a little like crazy ass lab. Is he a lab?
No.
No.
He's a blonde Cocker Spaniel.
Oh,
so he looks like a little retriever puppy.
Yeah.
But he's not.
And
He's
he's
11.
fucking crazy.
Yeah. He's still a bit. He's not so much now. He has calmed down.
But just the thought of you shouting in a park, Ian!
Yep. Ian. Middle-aged man. Hello, love.
Could have been Dave.
I'm
or
going to work
Gordon
and I'm
or
like,
Gordon.
oh, Ian, shit in the kitchen. And they're like, what? Who's Ian? I was like, oh, it's my dog. It's still really funny.
It is funny, yeah. It is
11
funny.
years I've been making this joke.
Well, listen, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me. You're amazing, and I know you play it very cool, but you've had an amazing career, and I think you're going to inspire a lot of women to follow in your footsteps, or just like those women out there that are subtly confident, just showing that, just paving their way. And
Maybe my advice would be just keep going.
Keep going. I like that.
Yeah.
Simple.
Just keep going.